And I found a quote and it said, "You don't die when your heart stops beating, you die when your heartbeats have no meaning." And so that really was a punch in the gut because I was like becoming this robotic person that is not me. And so my heartbeats were active, but they didn't have meaning anymore.
All right. Today I am so honored because I have the Charlene Johnson in with us, and she is going to just share her wisdom, her insights on all of the amazing things that she's doing in her community. She is such a visionary nurse leader. She's an educator, an author, and a transformational coach that really has a heart for healing healthcare from the inside out. She has over 30 years of experience within nursing, within leadership, and academia, and she now leads the Wellness Whisper Coach and Consulting LLC. And I resonate with this so much. I have a healthcare background, and so I see the need for this, but to have one that is purpose driven, that also supports healthcare professionals in really just reclaiming their joy, their resilience, and purpose within their work is incredible. And she has so many amazing things. And I love to really just start it off with a deeper insight into who you are, how you got into this area, and just kind of what God has been doing through your work. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here, and thank you for allowing me to be here, Vanessa. I'm excited about the conversation. So, wow, what a question. But I will start with saying how I got here, meaning birthing the Wellness Whisperer. So I've been I actually was in the military initially for high school. We didn't have money for school, so I was walking to the mall one day and I saw $25,000 Army College Fund. So guess what? 17-year-old joined the Army. And so, I didn't talk to my parents or anything until like literally about a week before I was getting ready to go. And so it was very traumatic for them and me because I had never left home. So I got off. I mean, that was like one of the best decisions in my life, literally, because it moved me from Cleveland to out to California to actually grow up and see what I wanted to do. So I always wanted to be a nurse or a flight attendant. And so the nurse went out, went in the military. I did medic. And then I got out like 2.5 years later because I wanted to go to school so that I can get my nursing degree. And that's really how I wound up. So I was in the profession. I used to work in NICU, and that's what neonatal intensive care with the little babies. And I absolutely loved it. But as I continued on, you start getting restless. You start getting I was starting to get a little agitated, and I knew something was wrong. Something was going on. I needed to elevate, level up a little bit or something. And so I became I switched over and I became maternal child health. And so that was amazing, being able to see babies born every day, every night. That was absolutely amazing. So I did that. That's really where I ended. And so while in that transition, though, I felt this tug for leadership. And so my directors, they were like, "Oh, you need to be a leader. You need to be this." And I'm like, "I'm good. I'm in my comfort zone. Leave me alone." And so but eventually I stepped up to the plate and I became assistant nurse manager. So within about 5 or 6 years, I got really like agitated again, restless, and all of the things that you start feeling when you're a little bit on the misaligned side. And so I recognized that at that particular time, it was time for me to do something different. I believe that God had been speaking to me for quite some time because I was starting to learn about how to birth your dream and how to really go after what He wants you to do. But, the comfort zone of stable 9 to 5 with a really wonderful salary, it keeps you like in your golden handcuffs.
Yeah.
And so, so eventually, many years later, because it took me a long time to recognize, um, I got to this point, it was in 2022, and I found a quote and it said, "You don't die when your heart stops beating, you die when your heartbeats have no meaning." And so that really was a punch in the gut because I was like becoming this robotic person that is not me. And so my heartbeats were active, but they didn't have meaning anymore. And so that's when I knew that, okay, Charlene, you got to shift. God's been dealing with you. He told you that he's lifting the anointing. Like all of these things that I was going through, but I kept pressing on because, the comfort zone is so comfortable. And then just thinking that I was getting ready to launch out from a really successful career, that was like, no way. But then within the system, I start seeing the gap. I start seeing that, what, our healthcare workers are really struggling post-pandemic. And so God gave me the gift to create curricula and things like the experiences for them to go deep so that they can go wide. So he starts showing me different things so that I can do to help the healthcare workers. And so thus I launched out and I started my own business, the Wellness Whisper Coaching and Consulting, where I do go into organizations that help the healthcare workers to reprioritize their well-being.
Oh my goodness. I know not everybody could see me, but I'm like this because I feel like it's one of the things that I've noticed with this podcast is I kid you not, I could be researching something or talking to something, and my next guest speaks exactly about the things that I've been thinking about. So yesterday,
Wow.
I was reading, I downloaded this book on Amazon and he was talking about contentment. And there's this level of God doesn't want it kind of was conflicting to me because there's a verse in the Bible that talks about how, like, I want to be content in all things or content in all circumstances. And then
Right.
in this book, it was speaking about how, like, God doesn't want you to be content. And there's a difference. There's a huge difference in contentment in the fact that, like, we always want to strive for more and we don't want to be complacent in one area because God wants us to be going after the things that are on our heart. And then there's this other element of contentment with being happy, right? And I think that us as entrepreneurs, like he starts to fill our hearts with this level of like, let's do more. You are where you need to be, like I've gotten you to this point. Now let's get to the next one. And I feel like that was something that I struggled with a lot because I felt like, why can't I just be happy? Right? Like, or why do I have this need to always feel like I need more? And I was like, is that
Right.
bad? Because shouldn't I feel just wherever you put me, God, is
Yeah,
where I'll
thankful
be?
where I'm at.
Yeah. How did you, what was I know that you talked about, being in healthcare and seeing that gap, which is such a gift for one. I think that a lot of people see the need for more within the healthcare system, but they don't do anything about it.
Right.
What was the point where you were like, I feel like this is exactly where I need to be? And you saw, did you have this moment where you're like, this is how I'm going to do it? Or were you like, I have past experience in this area. Maybe I could
Well,
do
no,
this.
yeah, no, I really started thinking about, because when God deals with us, like I am in his presence, I am seeking him all the time, especially with this transition that I had to go through here. Here I am, you're ready to leave six figures into nothing. And I was like, okay, so I got to really God. And because of the misalignment that I was in, I was misaligned. So I had to repent and say, Lord, I know you were speaking to me. I should have did it earlier, but here I am now. Thank you for your grace. And so I really started leaning into him, saying, okay, Lord, when I was in there, because you can't like ignore the different things that he shows you in the organization. And so my intention every day that I went into work was to make a difference, to touch somebody's life, to transform somebody, to pray for somebody. Like that was my intention going into this corporate space. I mean, I even made a declaration. I'm going to pray with everybody that's over me. And this is like my little secret that I'm doing. And then I got an opportunity to do that because there will always be moments where he wants you to be the light in the midst of darkness. And so I just was seeking him, Lord, I see the gap. And then what I noticed while I was in the system, I got very creative. Like I recognized the gift that I had. I was able to create content that actually, I call it crossover anointing because he gives you the ability, you can't go into a corporate space talking about different scriptures and stuff like that, but you can go in with the essence of the Holy Spirit and then allow him to work through you. And so that's what I start creating curricula like that. And like that just like came like naturally. And so I created this one thing, it was called the Caritas Encounter. And I just put it out there. And it was like people were like crying and it was just crazy. And so I started noticing little things like that, which was a big thing because when you can get people to move past their mask and go deeper and to see, because the encounter that I did, it involved compassionate human service, forgiveness, surrender. And I forgot it was one more thing, but I can't remember it right now. But it took them on an experience. And so all of the stuff that they were dealing with outside of work came into play. And so I deliver this thing and it becomes very, very transformative. And then that's when I start noticing, okay, God. And so my husband and I, we were doing a project and he started telling me about the crossover anointing. And that's when God will cause you because he wants us to go into the different systems of the world and to be that light. And so the crossover anointing is to give you the ability to articulate it in a way that it touches the hearts of the people without all the scriptures, without all of that. It's the essence of my presence able to come across those words and touch your heart and make you start reflecting on the things that you need to reflect on. You got to reflect on that bad attitude you have right now. Like, what's the root of it? You see what I'm saying? So that's kind of how things kind of manifest. And then I just start noticing, and then I start creating curricula. And then, so the biggest thing was in 2020 when the murder of George Floyd happened. That's where, like, my voice became very loud. I was quiet. I was just, going through the motions, doing my thing, happy, excited, and all of that, not really ready to disrupt anything. But then when that happened, that was very traumatic because I never look at the news and I happened to
Yeah.
see it. And so then I went into prayer, and oh my gosh, that's the words of life because he said, as I was crying, I was upset, and he said, "What you do in this moment will determine your destiny and
Mm.
dictate your future." And so I knew right then I had to move from the anguish and the frustration to the action and impact. And that's where I started sharing my story in the organization about the different things that I had faced as a leader coming up through the ranks. And so it just gave me this when I started raising my voice,
Yeah.
people start being drawn toward it. Hey, can you come here and speak? Hey, can you do this? It just started getting like kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But it was really God because he was saying, look, you have a story. You've been through all of these experiences, but you've never told anybody about it. And so I started using storytelling as a tool for transformation and to bring about, at least start the process of healing.
Oh, I love that so much. I think that there's such power in our voices, and that's something that I know I struggled with in even sharing my business and being bold in the ask or being bold in certain areas. And I realized that's part of the gift that he gave me is using my voice to share. And not everybody has that desire or that want. Did it? So for me, it came about in a way like I could just visualize myself on stage as speaking, or like I could see numbers or just see myself in certain like circumstances. There could be like a community and I'm like, oh my gosh, I would love to do something like that. How does God show you? Like, does he speak to you in subtle, small whispers, or is he like he puts that vision on your heart? I feel like you and I are very similar in that we're like we dream
Yeah,
big and that we have that big vision.
yeah. Well, and I think that's what he does. So before that, now I have to be honest. When I was growing up, I was so shy, extremely shy. You would have never, ever told me I would be doing what I'm doing today. But, as we start going to church and I was in ministry with my husband, we supported this one ministry. And then I went to this thing called the Encounter. And oh my God, because before then, I never said a word in church or anywhere. But I went to this encounter and it just helped me to get delivered from this self-sufficient spirit and this shy spirit. And so all of that kind of like manifested, and then I got like deliverance from it. And then now, I mean, at that point, they were not able to shut Charlene up. They probably wish they could have. But it was almost like my tongue was loosed. And then I moved past me
Yeah.
knowing that there's something in my voice that somebody else needs to hear. But it came from me noticing that there was different women that kept being drawn toward me, like in the fivefold ministry and things like that, that wanted to speak. And so then that's why I started Dream Girls Network. And so yeah, he does speak, and then I write it down and I take it through the process, almost like the process of birthing. If you know you have a child, so you understand it. And I work in maternal child, so that conception of that seed, that dream, and I let it stay on the inside enough so that I can see what he's saying. I
Yeah.
don't just run out immediately, just like when I got the vision for Dream Girls. I didn't just run out. I just let it sit and let it simmer in his presence as I ask and seek and knock and ask and seek and knock. Okay, what's the vision? What's the mission? What's all of the things that we need to make this successful. And then once I can see it on the inside, then hey, it is mine on the outside. I just got to fight to get it done, if you know what I mean,
Oh,
because nothing's going to
absolutely.
come easy,
Yeah.
you know. So yeah,
I
that's why our voices are so powerful. I'm excited about what you said because when you did use your voice, look at the impact. Look how many people that you're drawing in. It almost reminds me of that. I was looking at this one quote, and it's by Diana Hardy, I think her name is. And it says, "One voice at the right pitch can create an avalanche."
Oh my
And so when
God.
we step into our voice, there's such a ripple effect to so many people versus us being quiet. And that's what I recognized in, just my whole journey. Once you find your voice, you become dangerous and you become a light for God because then you're not silent anymore. You're speaking up. You're being an example or a light in your industry, wherever your industry finds you. You're not settling for things. I start disrupting things. I start having really tough conversations with love, and so that's the beautiful part of being a kingdom person, that I come from a place of love, and it might be hard hitting because my coach, he says that love is contending with another person for their highest good in every situation until it becomes a manifestation. And so that contending is God's not going to leave me the way that I think I should be. He's not going to leave me comfortable. Mm-mm. You can forget that. He's going to contend with you because he wants to bring out that pearl of great price. He wants to bring out that diamond that's on the inside of you. So that's why he's not going to let you be normal. He's going to keep innovating and keep making you say, no, hey, I need to improve this, or I need to become this. I need to learn how to love beyond this person's issues, or, whatever the thing is, he's going to always pull us up to be higher.
Yes. Oh my gosh. First of all, I feel like I'm just gonna have so many mic drop moments in this that I'm just like, oh, so, so good. And I'm just like, you're just speaking my language because I feel so. One of the things that I want to talk about before I forget is recently I've had this thought coming into my mind. You know, you go through pivots or not pivots, times in your business where it's going to be harder than other times.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that we forget is how much work sometimes it does take to grow ourselves to be what we need to be. And I had
Yes.
this thought the other day and I was like, you know what? Because my youngest is essentially the same age as when I started within this specific space. And I was like, gosh, when I look at him, if I see him like he's young, because he's gonna be 3, right? And so I'm like, he's just, he's just little.
Oh,
And I'm like, why do we not, within business, when it's first growing, it needs so much care from us. And it's going to
yeah.
demand so much. And then as it grows, it needs a little bit less and less and less. And then you see these people who, are 20 years in their business, 30 years in their business. And excuse me, it ends up being something where like as your business has gotten to the stage, it requires less output from you because you've done so much
Yeah.
more. And so when you
Right.
talked about, seeing I don't remember how you worded it. It was so beautifully, and I'm gonna probably mess it up. But when you were talking about how like your business is really like, it's your baby and it goes through,
Yeah.
these stages, like that's what I think of is that your business is your baby and it grows and I think oftentimes we forget it's super common, like when you're first starting, for it to require so much output from you. And the
Yeah.
other thing that you were saying is, I don't know, there were so many moments within it that I'm like, this is so amazing and so relevant. I was that person who was super shy when I was a little girl. And
Oh.
and if you, if you see like, people who know me now, I don't think they would know that, but I think it's when you're stepping into what you're truly called to do that you're filled with just this confidence that only God could give you. And I think that
Yes.
you that's another indication of like you are in alignment with what he's called you to do when you get so excited about things and they light you up and they bring you, just so much joy and it seems so effortless for you, right? Like I know that there's a level of self work that goes into it and reading
Right.
and all of these things, but like it just comes so naturally to you that it doesn't always to other people. And I think a lot of times we're so close to our genius that we don't realize that like that's not how people normally are or they don't normally see things from this perspective. How would you say when you so one of the things you brought up was when, George Floyd passed and everything happened with that. How did it really change? I know you said it kind of made you see things in a different lens.
Yeah.
Did it really change the way that you were approaching your business or teaching? Like it made your voice more bold, or how did that really change a lot of your business?
Well, it changed because at that time I was still an employee.
Mm.
So I'm a very, very new business owner. My business started last April. So I'm a like baby
Oh, I love
baby.
that.
So I'm a super baby in the field. It's just that I made a lot of networking while I was at work and things like that. But that moment was a defining moment because before that moment, I didn't share my story
Mm.
because I didn't want to hurt people. I didn't want to make people uncomfortable. I didn't want to like rock the boat, so to speak, because then, God dealt with me because a lot of times you're the only one in certain spaces. And I was like the only one in a certain space. And so if you don't raise your voice, then who will? And so that's kind of what the urgency came from actually sharing my voice. And then when you find out that, wow, when you do release your voice, there's somebody on the other end saying, thank you so much, because I really wanted to say that, but I didn't have the heart to say that. It becomes like a calling. God begins to start, using your voice really for the voiceless, for the ones that are not going to speak up, that don't have the courage, that are not healed enough to speak up. I was healed enough to enter that moment and be bold in my conviction and to have the very difficult conversations. But that affected change right where I was.
Yeah.
And so that's really how I would answer that. I wanted to kind of go back to something you said about the birthing process. And with a new business and things like that, it is not easy. It's not easy whatsoever. But it just reminds me of what you to claim a dream in the now is going to take violence. I mean, it's going to take you actively
Yes.
like going the extra mile. I mean, I had to burn the midnight oil just to get it started. You know what I mean? Because I had a full-time job. But when you know you have something bigger that's calling you, then you do both of them until you can shift and do the other one. And so I mean, thank God I had the early retirement because my question is, Charlene, what if you didn't have that? Would you have said yes?
Right.
Because that's where I start going to it. Would I really say yes? And I do. I think I had got to a point where you feel that whisper on the inside of you. And then that whisper became a roar. And I could not ignore the voice anymore. I had to say, you know what? I trust you, Lord. I'm stepping out. There's somebody in the industry that needs what I have on the inside of me.
Yeah.
And I'm saying yes to your will. And if this is the strategy to get me before your people, then that's what I want to do. And that's really what it was all about for me. I love people. I love helping to transform people because I have been through a lot and I've been able to move from just this quiet, insignificant person because I thought I was insignificant to a force to be reckoned with.
Yes, I love that. There is some, so this past gosh, it was last year already. It felt like it just happened, but last year I had the honor of being in a program with Goldman Sachs, and it was 1 million Black women, uh, or 1 million women Black in business. And they teach you all these incredible business tips and insights from like some of the best, right? But the thing that I
Awesome.
walked away with is that what I do has impact. And just like you said, like I felt like this person that was so insignificant for so long. And I think when you are bold in with your story, with your journey, I think it really helps people to see that like they can see themselves in that too. And they realize that
Yes.
wow, what I'm doing actually does matter and it can help kind of like that ripple effect of the impact that you make just simply by sharing your voice. And it was just simply by even being in the same room as these women that it impacted me. Therefore, it changed my mindset on how I approach every aspect of my business. And I think that there's again so much power in your voice, right? Like just being bold in what God has given you and I think a lot of times as women, we kind of shrink ourselves down and
Yeah,
say,
exactly.
oh, I don't want to, upset anyone, or I don't want to share this because I don't want to come across as salesy, or all of the things, right? All the things we tell
Yeah,
ourselves.
right.
But I had a coach one time tell me, she's like, you're not glorifying God when you don't share your story. Like you're actually doing a disservice to all the people that really could use what you have. And when you're not
That's
bold in
powerful.
that, it doesn't help anyone. And I thought, wow, that's so true, right? But
It
like,
is. That's so powerful.
yes. And I was like, wow,
Well,
that really
because when you
changed.
think about, I mean, when you think about like the just the end of our lives and stuff like that, because I'm 58, so I always think about things, futuristically because God, I mean, what am I going to tell him when I get up there?
Yeah.
Because I mean, to me, true success is being able to tell God, Lord, I did what you told me to do.
Yeah.
I didn't shrink back. I
Mhm.
did and quit. I kept doing it, even if I did it and I failed.
Yeah.
So that's really what, Lord, what do you want me to do? Like, and that's where I'm at. Like, I was a nurse. I was a nurse leader. That was my occupation, but it wasn't my vocation.
Yeah.
My vocation is to be the light in the midst of a dark world. Is to share my gifts that I have of inspiration and impact and transformation with other people. You see what I'm saying? When we get bold in our conviction like that, because the enemy wants you to be quiet. He
Right.
doesn't want you to share your voice because your voice, like yours, is rippling out all over the world.
Right.
And there's people being drawn towards you because you said yes. And
Mhm.
so that's what I start thinking about. Okay, me just saying yes to God, how many other people will be inspired from that one yes?
Yeah. It's
I
so
mean, it's
powerful.
pretty powerful.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing to me is the impact. So I had to go
Yes.
from this mindset of revenue to how do I actually impact somebody and measure my success in that
Good.
way. And
That's good.
there's something so different about when you're kingdom minded, right? Because the world is like, not that revenue. And people will probably hear me talk about this in my podcast all the time because I want to drive that out is like, yes, business tells you you need profit margins, you need dollar amounts, you need this much in your bank account, but what does that actually mean to you? What is the impact ultimately? Like at the end of the day, what does that dollar amount mean to you? It's probably not that. It's really more tied
Yes.
towards the bigger goal. And that's usually the impact with people. But I think a lot of times it's that is that we're set out to make an impact and it's the world tells you focus on the numbers, focus on the dollar amounts, and when you're kingdom minded, God says no. We want to focus on the people and how we serve them and how we show up. And I think it's so different when you approach business in that way, when you can see things through his lens versus what the world tells you. And I'm
Yes.
constantly learning. It's a journey that's always
Yes.
evolving. And the things that I was like so convicted on, I'm like, no, God has driven those out of me and shown me that that's not necessarily the case.
Yes.
And I'm,
I have a question for you. Can I
yeah.
ask you? So when you talk about impact,
Mhm.
I mean, doesn't like when you do focus on the impact, then you're not as concerned with the financial part of it. It seems like you focusing on the impact is your focus, and then all of these blessings come anyway.
Yeah,
You know
so
what I mean? Like, what
yes.
have you seen?
Yes. So I I can quote scripture. I just can't tell you exactly what the verse is, but the verse that talks about like set your eyes on the kingdom and all will
Yes.
be uh I can't remember how it goes, but
Seek
there's
ye
a
first
Bible
the
verse
kingdom
that
of
says that.
God,
Yes.
and everything else
Yes.
will be added unto
Exactly.
you.
It's that one.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Gotcha, girl.
So with that mindset is where it really shifted for me because it's like I just want to do what you want me to do, Lord. And if the revenue is a piece of it, because there's a part of me, I can't say that there's no part of me that is focused on income, right? Because that wouldn't
Mm,
be honest. Yes, God has
right.
when I initially started my business and started this community, he like filled me with a dollar amount. And I was like, there's no way, right? And so often I was like, is this me wanting this or is this him showing this to me? And so I questioned that a lot. And there's moments where it's like I'm still working towards that number because I have a goal in mind. But
Yeah.
what he had to really drive out of me is you can't grow that quickly because what would happen is that you're not serving people in the way that he wanted me to serve them with deep transformation and deep relationships. And so that impact, if I'm able to impact those people on that level, it will be a ripple effect. And then everything else after will come. And he's shown me that in other areas of my business when I stopped focusing on the money. I'll give you like one example. So when I first started my business, everything came really quickly. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This is great. And I started taking on work and taking on work. And what ended up happening is I experienced burnout really fast. And I was
Mm.
like, you know what? I'm not able to serve my clients as effectively as I'd like. And in addition to that, I don't like the person that I'm becoming. And
Oh, wow.
no matter the dollar amount, I can't do this. And so and then there was this community that popped up in my mind, right? So I was like, you know what? I have to shift my focus. And it's not about this piece that is my breadwinner, it's what God is asking me to do. And so I offloaded probably about 80% of my clients so I can shift my focus here. And it's just like little moments like that where it's like, yes, I could focus just on, what brings me the income, but I feel like that's not where, have you ever had moments like that where you're like, okay, God, you're shifting me from one place to the next? Oh, well, you did, right? Because you left nursing.
Yeah. Yeah, I did. Yeah. I mean, and that was a huge shift. And it was so much so because, a lot of times in those professions like that, you feel like your value is in your occupation.
Yeah,
And so God had to re-show me that no, your significance is in doing what I tell you to do.
yeah,
And so you have everything, every gift, every talent that you need to go out there and be a kingdompreneur. You have everything that you need. And so, but I like what you're talking about though, because my struggle, sis, because I'm a minister of the gospel and I give away everything free. So I had like this has been a major mind shift that I've had to do because your value, I mean, I know that I have value to bring,
right.
but there was a part of me that was like, oh, I just want to like bless people,
Mhm.
because that's like, that's what I learned.
Yeah,
But I've literally had to shift that mindset for this business and to show that, no, your value. Like I was just talking to someone, they want me to come speak in May, and they were like, "Well, what's your rate?" And I was like, "Well, what's your budget?" Because I didn't want to sell
yeah,
myself short. Because like literally, when I started this whole process of putting fees and all of that together, I was lowballing big
yep,
time because like that's what I knew to do. But then this person, she's like, "No, this is what the organization will pay you. So
yep.
you better level your thought process up."
Mhm.
And so it's been really a wonderful journey just actually doing that. It hasn't been easy because that's
Right.
just different, right?
Yeah.
But I know that God is doing it on purpose.
Mhm.
So that's what I keep thinking. I keep thinking, okay, Lord, you know who I am and you know my heart. And like I had this heart to give away stuff, but I know that that's not going to do you any good. You're
Right.
teaching me how to manage and be a good steward over the gift that you gave me because the gift will make room for you and bring you before great men and women. Those great men and women will pay for what you have on the inside of you.
Yes.
So
And
that's
there's,
what I got to.
yeah, and I think so. I love that you asked that because I struggled with that early on in my business. And so many
Mhm.
women that I speak to, pricing is the number one thing, right? There's an imposter
Yeah.
syndrome that comes into play. There's also just feeling of not even knowing what to charge because you don't know what to compare it to. So there's a lot of different components. The thing for me that I had to realize is that there's a time and a place for me to gift, and there's also, like, God gave me this gift and I deserve, to be honored in that way, to be paid a certain amount. And I think that a lot of times we, I'm trying to think of the best way to say this. So when we are paid our worth, it therefore allows us to do more of the things that we want in acts of service, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And so we
Absolutely.
can give more freely and we can give from a more servant heart. And I think you can discern that. There's a lot of times where you're like, you know what? I absolutely want to help you out in this situation. God called me to
Yeah.
this. And there's the other
Right.
component where you're like, hey, I got to make money so that I can actually serve these women because running a business does require an element of, cost and
Mm.
whatnot. But I think that what you're feeling is so, so common because it's something that there's so many variables that go into it. Plus, you just have a servant heart. So you're just like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, but then you think about it like, I mean, because really you have to put your business cap on. That's why I really enjoy what you just said because that's something, it was such a breakthrough that I had to get through and such a mind shift. I mean, it literally was a mind shift because but then I start thinking about like value. I mean, what's the value of helping somebody to get what they need, like with your gift, for instance, like what you do. Like how much value do you bring? And you're worth everything and then some.
Right.
Probably not even enough with from your prices that you're charging, but
Right.
but yeah, no, thank you for that because that's helpful for me as a new business owner.
Yeah. I think it's something that too, when you're stepping away, because I did that. I was in a 9 to 5 and I absolutely stayed comfortable. I had my business and I was working that for about 5 years. And it was
Mm,
the daily grind. You
yeah,
would work your 9 to 5, you'd get off, and then you'd work again, and it was just
yeah,
that constant thing because my husband is also a business owner, and so I held all the insurance, all the benefits, and I was like, if I step
yeah,
out, that's going to be scary and terrifying, and I just can't, like, I couldn't justify it. And then there's that element of like, how am I even going to bring in money? When it was crazy
right,
because in that space I was in, I was barely making 5 figures over the course of that 5 years. Like every year it would be just barely. And I'm like, okay, I'm doing everything I can do. And then my youngest, after I had him, the one thing I said is, I don't want to be a stay-at-home mom. I love my boys, but like, that's just not me. And so we had him on a wait list for daycare. The daycare, I'm getting ready to come off my leave, confirming with the daycare, and they're like, we actually don't have him on the wait list anymore. And I was like, what do I
oh,
do?
no,
Um,
wow.
yeah, and in that moment I just prayed and God was like, stay at home with them. And I was like, no, that's like the one thing I asked you not to have me do, but I did it.
Course,
And within 3 months, I had made the decision to pivot fully working with brands and businesses. And so I pivoted and stayed home. And within 3 months, that same daycare that didn't have the wait list calls me up and was like, hey, we have a spot for full-time daycare. I put him in the daycare, and within 6 months, I had made 6 figures, which was crazy because it's like for the prior 5 years, I could barely make anything. And so
wow.
I think there's an element of just the obedience aspect of
Yes.
it with you listening
Yes.
as well and you saying, I'm gonna let go of what's hard and what's comfortable and I'm gonna step in fully, not knowing what that looks like. And I can imagine that people so often are like, this is exactly where you're supposed to be. Like this looks like you were made, this is exactly in alignment because I can just see it. I can see you lighting up. I see how, every aspect of your business, even in with it being new, to me is such a direction that or sign that God is like, yes, this is exactly where
Yeah.
you need to be.
You know what you said something. I think that was really critical what you said though. You didn't want to do what he told you to do. So it was really cool that you like, because like a month, many of us power through it and we
Mhm.
don't, we're not obedient. And we're like, I really don't want to do that, Lord. So I'm not good. And look how long it probably would have took. So you just did what he told you to do. And then, wow, what a breakthrough. That's a powerful story.
Yeah, I feel like there's power in that, in just saying, you know what, I'm going to surrender, even though I don't want to do the
Yes.
thing. And I
Yes.
think there's an element of like when we surrender, a lot of times we do it half-heartedly, and it's like,
Yeah.
no, he can tell the full surrender, I feel like that's exactly where you stepped into with your business.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of women
Yeah.
that are in that stage where it's like, I don't want to give up what's comfortable and transition into something that's hard. But I love that you did. So I literally could just talk to you all day because
I
I
know
feel,
this is like so much fun. You have to be on my podcast.
yes, I would love that, love that, love that. Um, I want to ask one last question, but how do
Okay.
you integrate now what you do, like your faith and your business and everything? I know you said you and your husband is your husband still in ministry?
No, he's not in ministry now.
How do you
Yeah, he's
guys,
kind of dealing, he's taking care of himself now.
oh,
Yeah.
good. How do
Yeah.
you guys integrate that into your day to day? Like your faith, your business, your marriage, just I believe that they're not meant to be separate, right? I think that God really
Right.
wants us to be in business and I think you can have that. You can have the family that's thriving, you can have your business that's growing and your faith. What does
Yeah.
that look like
Yeah.
for you?
Yeah, I think what that looks like. So our foundation is God. We are called, we're called into ministry. I'm still like in ministry, doing women in ministry particularly. And so it is such a part of who I am. Like it's God I am because he is. You know what I mean? Like I can't like get away from God. So I'm constantly speaking to him. I have strategic time that I plan in my calendar. I talk to him, I get quiet. Like, really, my biggest thing in post retirement is silence, quiet, because
Yeah.
far too long I was too chaotic to sit still and listen. And this season, as I move forward, I need to know if he wants me to do it because I even said, Lord, if this is not the business that you want for me, it's yours, I can give it up. I that's the kind of like conversations
Yeah.
that I'm having with him. If I keep going and then it's like I feel this like, okay, no, not don't do that, Charlene. So I don't do it. I won't do it. So it's really just it's a daily thing. Like my life as a quote Christian is who I am. And so I follow his principles, I
Yeah.
follow his laws. And so it's just part of what I do. I love people beyond where they are. I mean, there's a mantra that I use. I walk in undisturbed composure. I literally walk in undisturbed composure because many are the afflictions of the righteous, but he delivers us out of them all. So I come with a shield of undisturbed composure. I lock that in my spirit and my heart because I know that challenges are going to come. Like it's a given. So
Right.
that doesn't throw me. So my strategy is I walk in undisturbed composure. So I'm going to be able to love the unlovable. I'm going to be able to reach the unreachable. I'm going to be able to go into spaces and actually bring his presence to help transform lives. So
Yeah.
you see what I'm saying? It's like
Yeah.
a part of who I am.
Yep.
There's a quote that says maybe the journey isn't so much about becoming, but it's about unbecoming everything
Absolutely.
that's not like us so that we can become who we were destined to be.
Yeah.
So anything that's not like him, I'm chipping it away. I'm letting it go. I mean, unforgiveness, all of the stuff that can hold us captive. And so it's a constant spiritual journey and a journey of manifesting the highest expression of who I was called to be. And so that's the process. And
Yeah.
so it's just like it is integrated into everything I do. I'm asking him about my business. I got to make sure my system doesn't collide, meaning my
Yeah.
marriage system, my parenting system,
Yeah.
my business system that cannot, when that starts colliding, then I got to back up. I got to find out, okay, Lord, something happened here because in ministry, everything collided and we did not know how to spin out of it. And so from that experience, we learned how to make sure that our system, our marriage system stays here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're all together, but I got to make sure they don't collide.
Yeah.
So I have to spend the time, I only get 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
So I got to make sure I'm spending the time where things matter most.
Yes. I think that's it's not a secret, but I think it's that thing that it's that hard I'm trying to avoid using the word balance because I try not to.
No, it's
It's
okay.
it's this fine line where it's like you're just prioritizing, right? Like there will be ebbs and flows when your husband needs more of your attention and your business needs
Exactly.
more of your attention, your children need more of your attention, you need more of your own attention.
Yes.
And it's not going to look linear like, okay, I crossed this box off and, I spent 30 minutes with my husband and then it just doesn't
Mhm.
work that way. And
No.
I think it's just
But I like what
recognizing
you
that.
said though. I like that though because it is like there's certain times where my kids needed me. Like all of my kids are
Mhm.
grown. So it's different now.
Yeah,
But I'm still intentionally planning trips with my daughter for
right.
mommy daughter day, things like that. So you still have to be intentional because you can get so consumed with this business
Yeah,
that you lose your whole family.
yeah,
And that's not God's desire. And
right.
so I love what you said there. That's wonderful.
Yes, no, I agree. What you said gave me chills because business can be so consuming. And I
Yeah.
had to, and it's even more recently, kind of get out of this pattern of finding my identity just being solely wrapped up in my business. Because of
Yes.
course, as a mom, I can lose myself, right? As a wife, I can
Yeah.
lose myself. And my business is that thing that just I'm so on fire with, but I can't let that. It's fine to have something outside of all of those things, but that's not my only that's not my identity. And so exactly what you said, it just spoke to me because that's, how I think a lot of times it can be because business, if we love what we're doing, it can be fun and it doesn't feel like work. But um,
And that's what I see in you. Like there's like this freedom of, I mean, you have like little babies. You have
yeah,
like a 3-year-old. I think you said 3 and 5.
yeah,
And
three
like
and six.
that's like crazy all by itself. I have 3 kids. They're all grown now. Now I have little grandjewels.
Oh,
But it's a lot. I mean, for you to, I think what I really love about just even conversating with you, you know what you want.
mm,
You know what you want, and you obviously have a partner, a husband that has
yeah,
fully embraced who you are, all of you.
yeah,
And I think that's what's been my benefit. My husband embraces me as I am, as a minister, as a pastor,
yeah,
as a businesswoman. He embraces me in that, and I embrace him in what it is that he's in his season as well. So I think that's so important as you're building a business. So I'm going to be learning from you because you've been in business for a while, girl.
I've learned so much from you, and it's such an honor that you think that I have confidence in it because it's a constant battle every single day. So I'm glad that someone thinks that. But I love so much of what you've said in so many different areas. It spoke to me so deeply, and it's just sometimes it's just a reminder
Yeah,
of what we need to hear. And I feel like okay, so I know that you have your book, right? Where
yeah,
can people find that? Where can people find you just to hear more of your wisdom because it's so good?
yes, yes. This is my new baby,
Oh,
and it's
it's so
called When
pretty,
the
by the
Moments.
way.
Thank you. That was my little photo shoot I did when I was 50. I turned
What? You
50 and I
look
did a photo shoot for the first time. But it's on Amazon. Also, you can reach out to me at www.wellnesswhisperconsulting.com. And you'll see all of my contact information there. I have a podcast, When the Moment Chooses You. I started in 2022, and I just started another one called The Whispers of Wellness. So you can see me on social media. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm all over the place.
Yes, love it as you
So
should
that's
be.
where you can reach out. But I have a special group that's dear to my heart, and it's the Dream Girls Network, and that's my ministry group. And that's women finding their voice and sharing it with their audience. So a lot of women come that, move from these really depressed states to these powerful speakers.
Wow.
So that's who I am. And it was so wonderful being with you. You are amazing.
Yes, thank you. So are you. And I can't wait. I'm going to be sharing all of what you said within our show notes and just with our newsletter. So thank you so much for today. It was such a gift.
Hey, thank you too.